All right, so we're diving in today to explore this whole Simpsons predicting the future thing. I know, I know. Sounds a little out there.
It does.
But you've sent us a stack of articles, and frankly, even I'm starting to get curious, especially about those 2025 predictions,
Yeah.
considering, well,
Right.
that's right,
It
Steph.
is fascinating, and you're right to be a bit skeptical, but there's a layer here worth digging into.
Okay.
The sheer volume of Simpsons episodes,
Uh-huh.
over 700, means statistically
Yeah.
some overlaps with real-life events are bound to happen.
Right.
It's like throwing darts at a dartboard blindfolded. Eventually, you're going to hit something.
Okay, I get the chance thing.
Right.
But some of these predictions are so specific, it's hard to brush them off as coincidence. Like Bart to the Future with President Trump. That episode aired way back in 2000. What are the chances of that?
That's the episode everyone points to.
Right.
But let's put that one aside for a minute.
Okay.
You've got some other 2025 predictions in your stack that are just as mind-boggling. One that really hits home,
Yeah.
given the current tech climate,
Uh-huh.
is the idea of an AI takeover.
Oh, okay.
There's an episode where Springfield descends into chaos as advanced robots start replacing everyone's jobs.
So not just like robot butlers,
Right.
but actual AI taking over our livelihoods. That's a bit unsettling. Is this prediction reflecting some real-world concern from back when the episode was written?
Absolutely. Remember, this episode aired during the dot-com boom?
Oh, right.
A time of rapid technological advancement.
Yeah.
People were already grappling with anxieties about computers replacing human workers.
Makes sense.
The episode takes this fear to a satirical extreme.
Sure.
But the underlying message is clear. What happens when technology advances faster than our ability to adapt?
It makes you wonder if the writers were tapping into some collective anxiety about the future. Like maybe they weren't predicting the future, but reflecting the fears that were already bubbling under the surface.
That's a really insightful observation.
Thanks.
And it's not just about job displacement.
Oh.
The episode also touches on the idea of AI becoming so sophisticated that it starts making decisions for humans, potentially leading to unforeseen consequences.
Okay, now that's where things start to feel a little too Black Mirror-ish for comfort.
Right.
I mean, we're seeing AI becoming more and more sophisticated every day.
We are.
Are we really that far off from a world where algorithms are calling the shots?
It's a question worth pondering.
Yeah.
Even today, we see algorithms influencing everything from the news we consume to the products we buy.
Okay, yeah.
The Simpsons may have exaggerated the scenario,
Right.
but the underlying questions about the ethics and potential pitfalls of unchecked AI development
Yeah,
are as relevant now as they were then.
that's a sobering thought.
It is.
So, AI robots potentially taking over our jobs and making decisions for us. 2025 is shaping up to be quite the year. What else do The Simpsons have in store for us?
Well, how about a global economic meltdown?
Oh.
There's an episode depicting a 2025 with crashing markets and devalued currencies.
Really?
It's interesting to note that this episode aired during the early 2000s,
Okay.
a period of relative economic stability.
Wait, so even when things were seemingly good economically,
Yeah.
The Simpsons were already hinting at a potential collapse. What anxieties from that time period do you think they were reflecting?
It's important to remember that even during periods of economic boom,
Uh-huh.
there are always underlying anxieties.
I guess so.
Perhaps the writers were picking up on concerns about growing income inequality, the dot-com bubble,
Right.
or even the potential for global economic shocks.
Okay, so maybe they weren't predicting a specific date for a financial crash.
Right.
But they were tapping into that underlying sense of unease about the future of the economy.
Exactly.
That resonates even more today,
It does.
given all the uncertainty in the markets.
The episode serves as a reminder that economic stability is fragile.
Yeah?
And perhaps we should be asking ourselves,
Oh.
Are we prepared for potential disruptions? Are we paying attention to the warning signs even when things seem good on the surface?
You're making me want to check my investment portfolio right now.
Probably a good idea.
All right, so we got robot overlords and economic doom on the horizon. Anything a little more optimistic on the prediction list?
Let's shift gears to something a bit more uplifting. Space exploration.
Okay, good.
The Simpsons have hinted at major space travel milestones for 2025,
Like what?
including manned missions to Mars.
Wow.
This aligns with the ambitions of companies like SpaceX, who are actively working towards making Mars colonization a reality.
So are we talking a quick trip to Mars or full-blown colonization by 2025? That seems awfully ambitious, even for Elon Musk.
It's not explicitly stated in the episode,
Okay.
but the imagery definitely leans towards a significant human presence on Mars.
Hmm.
Remember, this episode aired in the early 2000s?
Yeah.
A time when private space exploration was still in its infancy.
It was.
Perhaps the writers were simply extrapolating from the nascent but growing interest in space travel,
I see.
and in doing so accidentally tapped into a future that's now within reach.
Wow, so even their space predictions seem to be more about observing trends and pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
It seems that way.
It makes you wonder what other seemingly outlandish predictions might actually come true.
That's the beauty of The Simpsons. They take our current anxieties, our hopes, and our wildest dreams, and they weave them into these satirical narratives that somehow manage to feel both absurd and strangely prophetic.
Okay, I'm starting to see why people get so fascinated by this whole prediction thing.
I can see that.
But we've only scratched the surface.
We have.
We still need to unpack that Trump presidency prediction.
We do!
And address that whole death hoax that was making the rounds online.
Right, let's dive back into the weird stuff.
Okay.
The Trump prediction is particularly interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Not just for its accuracy, but also for some specific details in the episode that seem to mirror real-life events.
All right, I'm ready for round 2.
Good.
Let's see just how deep this rabbit hole goes.
Let's do it. If you rewatch Part to the Future, you'll note some scenes that bear an uncanny resemblance to real-life events.
Okay.
For instance,
Yeah.
the episode shows Trump descending an escalator during his campaign announcement,
Really?
almost mirroring his actual 2015 announcement.
Wait, seriously? An escalator?
Yeah,
That's too specific to be a coincidence.
it is pretty specific.
What's the explanation for these weirdly accurate details?
There are a few theories floating around.
Oh.
One is the law of large numbers. With
Okay.
so many episodes,
Right.
statistically, some storylines are bound to align with reality. It's like those infinite monkey theorem experiments.
Uh-huh.
Given enough time,
Yeah.
even random actions can produce something that looks intentional.
Okay, I could see that.
Right.
But it still feels like there's something more at play.
Mm.
Especially with those hyper-specific details.
Yeah.
Are we saying writers are secretly psychic?
Maybe not psychic,
Okay.
but they are incredibly astute observers of society.
Okay.
Another theory is that the writers were simply tapping into anxieties and trends that were already present.
Yeah.
Even if they weren't as obvious at the time, they might have been extrapolating from existing social and political dynamics.
I see.
And through satire, accidentally hit upon a future reality.
So instead of predicting the future, they were reflecting the present in a way that just happened to align with what eventually unfolded. That makes sense.
Right.
But it's still a bit mind-blowing.
It is kind of wild when you think about it.
It is.
It speaks to the power of satire to hold a mirror up to society,
Uh-huh.
and sometimes to unintentionally glimpse what might lie ahead.
Hmm.
The Simpsons have always been adept at poking fun at our cultural quirks and anxieties.
Right.
And in doing so, they might have inadvertently stumbled upon some future truths.
It's like they were dropping clues all along, disguised as jokes.
Yeah.
I've also heard about this theory called predictive programming.
Oh, right.
What's that all about?
That's a more fringe theory. And to be honest,
Yeah.
it's not really the focus of our deep dive today.
Right.
In a nutshell, it suggests that media is used to subtly influence or prepare the public for future events.
So, like subliminal messaging, but on a grander scale. I'm not sure I buy into that.
It's definitely out there.
But it's definitely food for thought.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of online rumors, we have to address that whole Simpsons predicted Trump's death thing that was circulating recently.
Ah, yes, the death hoax.
Yeah.
To be clear,
Okay.
there is no Simpsons episode that depicts President Trump's death,
Hmm.
especially not on February 14th, 2025.
Okay.
It's a prime example of how misinformation can spread like wildfire online,
Right.
often with no basis in reality.
It's a good reminder to be critical of what we see online
Yeah,
and to double-check our sources before hitting that share button.
absolutely.
But back to these 2025 predictions.
Right.
What's the takeaway for us, the viewers?
Good question.
Should we be stocking up on canned goods and preparing for a robot uprising?
I think the real value of these predictions lies not in their literal accuracy,
Okay.
but in the questions they raise. If The Simpsons are able to tap into our collective anxieties and extrapolate from current trends, what does that say about the path we're on as a society?
So it's less about the specific predictions
Yeah.
and more about the broader themes they highlight. Like a warning disguised as entertainment.
Exactly. Took
Okay.
the AI episode, for instance.
Yeah.
It's a satirical exaggeration, sure.
Right.
But it forces us to confront the very real ethical dilemmas surrounding artificial intelligence. What happens when we create machines that are smarter than us?
Ooh, good question.
How do we ensure they're used for good and not for harm?
It's like they're saying, hey, pay attention to this, folks.
Right.
This could be where we're headed if we're not careful.
Exactly.
There's a lot to process.
It is.
Especially when you consider how much of our lives are already intertwined with technology.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the brilliance of The Simpsons. They
Uh.
package these complex, thought-provoking themes in a way that's both entertaining and accessible. They make us laugh, but they also make us think.
Right.
And sometimes that uncomfortable laughter is the first step towards meaningful change.
You know, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they're sneaking in these important social commentaries.
They are.
Under the guise of slapstick humor and wacky storylines.
Yeah,
It's a pretty ingenious way to get people talking about these issues.
absolutely.
And the fact that these predictions continue to fascinate us decades later
It does.
speaks to their enduring power. They
Mm.
tap into something primal,
Yeah.
a desire to understand the future and our place in it.
For sure.
Okay, I officially sold on the idea that The Simpsons is more than just a cartoon.
I am too.
It's like a cultural barometer,
Mm.
reflecting our hopes, our fears,
Mhm.
and maybe even offering a glimpse into what might be.
Precisely.
And whether you believe in their predictive powers or not,
Yeah.
there's no denying that The Simpsons have a knack for capturing the zeitgeist
Right.
and prompting us to think critically about the world around us.
It's pretty remarkable.
So what's the next step for our listeners who are now as intrigued by this as we are?
Mm.
Where should they start their own deep dive into The Simpsons' prophetic world?
I think revisiting Bart to the Future is a must.
Oh, yeah.
Especially now that we're living in the year it predicted.
That's true.
It's fascinating to how much they got right.
Yeah.
And how much, thankfully, they got wrong. Pay attention to the details, the underlying themes,
Okay.
and the anxieties that the episode reflects.
I love it. Like a scavenger hunt through pop culture history,
Yeah.
looking for clues about our present and our future.
Exactly.
And hey, even if the world does end up being ruled by robots,
Right.
at least we'll be able to say The Simpsons totally called it.
A bit of dark humor to lighten the mood, I see.
Well, you know,
Gotta find the bright side.
there's a strange comfort in knowing that
Hmm.
even in the face of potential chaos,
Yeah.
we might have had a fictional warning. But jokes aside,
Okay.
the real power of The Simpsons' predictions lies in their ability to make us question, to think critically,
Right.
and to engage with the world around us in a more thoughtful way.
So true.
It's not just entertainment, it's a
No.
reflection of our culture and our anxieties.
All right, so homework assignment for our listeners. Rewatch Bart to the Future.
Do it.
Keep an eye out for those real-life parallels, and then let's discuss. Hit us up on social media with your thoughts and theories. We'd love to hear what you come up with.
Absolutely. What stands out to you? What connections can you make between The Simpsons' satirical world and our current reality? You know, I think the thing that gets me the most is how The Simpsons manages to be both hilarious and insightful.
Right.
It's like they're making us laugh while simultaneously making us think, wait a minute, is that actually possible?
It's a delicate balance.
It is.
And they've mastered it.
They have.
That's what makes this whole production phenomenon so intriguing. It's
Yeah.
not about blindly accepting everything as gospel,
Right.
but about using it as a springboard for discussion, for critical analysis, and for maybe, just maybe,
Yeah.
a little bit of self-reflection.
I like that.
After all, if The Simpsons can seemingly predict the future,
Yeah.
what does that say about the present we're creating?
Ooh, okay. Mic drop moment right there. You know? You're right. The Simpsons isn't just about goofy jokes and catchy phrases.
It's not.
It's a reflection of us, warts and all. And sometimes that reflection can be a little unsettling,
Right.
a little too close to reality for comfort.
Precisely.
Well, on that slightly terrifying but also incredibly thought-provoking note,
Yeah.
I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive into The Simpsons and their uncanny ability to predict the future.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe by next year we'll be adding a whole new set of predictions to the list.
Oh, I can't wait. Until then, stay curious, keep those browsers open, and then remember, if you see a three-eyed fish in your local pond,
Right.
maybe it's time to start paying attention to those Simpsons reruns.
Excellent advice. And Always remember, the future is not set in stone.
Mm.
We have the power to shape it,
Yeah.
to learn from the past, and to create a world that's a little less Springfield
Okay.
and a little more, well, let's just say, a little more hopeful.
Hear, hear. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride.
My pleasure.
And we'll catch you next time on the Deep Dive.
See you then. It's a delicate balance, and they've mastered it.
They have.
That's what makes this whole prediction phenomenon so intriguing.
Right.
It's not about blindly accepting everything as gospel.
No, of course not.
But about using it as a springboard for discussion, for critical analysis,
Okay.
and for maybe, just maybe, a little bit of self-reflection. After all, if The Simpsons can seemingly predict the future,
Right.
what does that say about the present we're creating?
Whoa. Okay. Mic drop moment right there. You know, you're right. The Simpsons isn't just about goofy jokes and catchy phrases.
No.
It's a reflection of us.
It is.
Warts and all.
Warts and all.
And sometimes that reflection can be a little unsettling, a little too close to reality for comfort.
Precisely.
Well, on that slightly terrifying but also incredibly thought-provoking note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive into The Simpsons and their uncanny ability to predict the future.
Indeed. And who knows, maybe by next year we'll be adding a whole new set of predictions to the list.
Oh, I can't wait. Until then, stay curious, keep those browsers open, and remember, if you see a three-eyed fish in your local pond, maybe it's time to start paying attention to those Simpsons reruns.
Excellent advice.
Peace.
And always remember,
Yeah.
the future is not set in stone.
Okay.
We have the power to shape it,
I like that.
to learn from the past, and to create a world that's a little less Springfield and a little more, well, let's just say, a little more hopeful.
Hear, hear. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride.
It was a pleasure.
And we'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.
See you then.